Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your fallen hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and this is the show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch start to finish. Today we're gonna jump into our giant mechs and join the brave orphans of Tekadan in our review of the second season of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. But first, John is gonna talk about the peculiar fallen angel from Gabriel DropOut.
Gabriel DropOut is not your run-of-the-mill slice-of-life show. It's all about Gabriel Tenmo White. She's the perfect angel in, like, the most literal sense of the word. She graduated at the top of her class and, up in an angel school in heaven. And now she has to descend to the realm of the mortals to attend a regular high school to learn the ways of the humans. She's joined by her fellow angel Raphael. And apparently the same thing happens from the world of the demons. So she's joined by demons Vignette and Satanikia. Yeah, part of her name is indeed Satan.
I was about to say, that's a very descriptive name.
And she tries to be as mischievous as possible. Everything backfires on her. We'll talk about that. Gabriel does her best to fit in and learn how best to help humans, until one night when she discovers online games.
Everything falls apart.
She sees that there's so many players around her that need her help. She's playing a healer, trying to, throw out as many heals as she can. But when she finds out that her heals aren't enough, she turns to microtransactions.
No!
And from there, it's a sharp decline. She becomes super addicted to the game, and she changes her lifestyle in a dramatic shift from being, a very helpful, kind angel to just a complete shut-in. Just a 180 change to, the classic hikikomori lifestyle.
It sounds incredibly depressing. I thought this was a comedy.
It is. Pretty much everything in the show is played for laughs, no matter what it is. So one of the demon girls, like I said earlier, Vignette, she's the most undemonic demon I've ever seen in anything, because she's like, hey, you're not acting very angel-like. You should, try and come to school once in a while. And they basically have to drag her out of her apartment, kicking and screaming. And her apartment's a mess. There's bags of trash everywhere. She's just in, like a hoodie, laying on the floor, playing games on this laptop. It's not your typical angel, not what you would expect. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad for her. But yeah, this show, like I said, pretty much everything is played for laughs, though. So it's not really. I guess you could view it on the outside as being depressing that she had such a dramatic shift, but it is what it is.
I mean, Welcome to the NHK kind of did the same thing, where it's like this really depressing setup in a way, and a shitbag of a character. Though I think he's not as bad in the anime as he is in the manga, if I remember correctly, or in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And but everything. It's a comedy. Like he and his body are encountering enough funny situations that it's that it's like worth enduring all the awkwardness and everything, and see them struggle with their daily lives. So I don't know, is it in that same vein? Is it like in that same style, the comedy, I mean? Or is it like turned into snappy slapstick, or is it more conversational humor?
There's a lot of slapstick in there because, like I said, about one of the girls, Satanikia, she just wants to become, the greatest demon of all time, even though, the family that she's born into isn't, like, super prolific in the demon world. Let's just, trying to make a name for yourself. Good for you. And every time she tries to pull one over on Gabrielle, it never works out. Gabrielle's, I would say, in air quotes, friend, Raphael, is, like, probably another one of the worst offenders because she antagonizes all of the other characters. There's one point where
does she like stay true to her I don't know, angelic ideals or something, or does she like succumb to the temptations of the real world as well, just as Gabrielle did?
I mean, they don't really show that happening. They just show her trying to, goof the other characters as much as she can because she thinks it's friggin' hilarious.
Okay, so she's just an asshole, kind of.
Pretty much.
All right.
There's some scenes where Satanikia is walking down the street. She has like melon bread, and there's this running gag with this dog who's constantly after her treats. And Raphael, in one episode, is like, listen, you're trying to talk to this dog, but you're doing it all wrong. You have to speak to the dog in its own language. So Satanikia just stares the dog down and just starts going, ruff, ruff, ruff.
Uh-huh.
And you see Raphael in the background. She's trying to keep from busting a gut at how naive Satanikia is.
So is she only fucking with Satanikia, and is this like an angel versus demon thing, or is she doing the same thing to Gabrielle as well?
She does a little bit of this sort of thing to everyone. So
right.
She's out for laughs wherever she can get them.
Does she get a bit of comeuppance for that, or is this like, okay?
No, not really.
Okay. Is
like,
she still a likable character, though, or it's like, oh my god, fuck her?
I guess it's not entirely right to say she doesn't get her comeuppance because there is one scene where it's not really super spoilers because, this is not really a plot-heavy series so much as it is, just, like I said, nearly everything is played for comedy. But she is undone by one of her own things.
Okay. Well, that's satisfying enough, I guess.
And like I said, Vignette is just like she's stuck in the middle, the eternal straight girl. Mm-hmm. Just trying to be like, why isn't everyone behaving the way they're supposed to? I don't understand. I'm so confused sort of character. It's a goofy, fun show that sort of bends the roles of, these archetypes for these characters and makes it, at least interesting to watch. On the staff side, it'll be easy to talk about what everybody has worked in because pretty much everyone on the staff has the connecting threads of shows like Himoto Umaru-chan, Love Lab, Minami K, Survival Game Club. Some worked on some other stuff like Rosen Maiden and Kantai Collection. But yeah, a lot of these people worked on a lot of the same stuff. So it seems like you could really tell they had everything all together when they were putting this show together.
By which studio made that show?
Doga Kobo.
Okay. That I haven't heard before, actually, I think.
Yeah, they did stuff like they did the second Aria, the Scarlet Ammo series, Engaged to the Unidentified, GJ Club. Apparently they did a little bit of High School of the Dead.
Well, that was mainly a Madhouse show, I think.
Yeah, but it says Animation Production Cooperation, so...
All right.
But yes, they've done a little bit of a lot of things, essentially. I feel like it would be kind of redundant. I mean, I can run down a lot of the staff, but like I said, they've worked on so many of the same things that it's kind of hard to make a clear distinction between, oh, this guy worked on this other guy worked on this other guy worked on this. When, it was directed by Masahiko Ota. I mean, his big unique credit is that he worked on Rosen Maiden. Mm-hmm. Had scripting done by about 3 or 4 different people. There's Takashi Aoshima, Hideki Koyasu, Kenji Sugihara, and Takamitsu Kono. The music done by Yasuhiro Misawa. The original creator of Gabriel DropOut is an author named Ukami. Just Ukami. I couldn't find an actual name, just the pen name. It's kind of like the last show I talked about where I couldn't find it. No, it was with Kobayashi's Maid Dragon. It was just whatever the pen name was, and I couldn't pull up the actual name.
Yeah. Which
is curious, but, you want to keep your name secret, that's fine. Fun little trivia fact, that was apparently Ukami played, a supporting character in a couple of the episodes, so he threw his voice in there.
Sure, why not? Is the show like based on a manga or a book? Or
Yes, it is a manga.
is that still running?
I believe so.
So is there a chance for season 2? Like, how does the show end? Is there even like an arc for the characters, or is it more like, I don't know, slice of life, one episode arc comedy plots, that get a resolution immediately, and there's not much development for the characters? I mean, there's like a goal to get Gabriel back to her quote unquote normal life, right?
Yes.
So does it go anywhere, or?
Well, she has her own little crises that go on. When the people in heaven above see that hey, you're not really doing your job, they kind of cut back on her stipend a bit. So what do you do when you're low on money? You try and find a job. So she finds a part-time job at a coffee shop where she's like very aloof and just like one of the worst workers I've ever seen.
This does sound like Welcome to the NHK.
And so I want you to prepare yourself for the amount of time that she works. It's a grand total of 1 day a week.
Oh my god. Sounds like paradise to me.
I mean, later on, she decides to be a bit more gracious to her employer. And she said, okay, I'll work 2 days a week.
I mean, how do you pay rent and microtransactions from just working 1 day a week?
There's a point in the series where they have to go back, where Raphael and Gabriel have to go back to heaven and report in. And, in heaven, they don't allow a lot of the modern conveniences of the human world. So when she tries to sneak in stuff like her laptop, it gets confiscated at the gates. So she has to somehow make do with her withdrawal from her game.
Is the show like going darker places? Like, even with it mainly playing the stuff for laughs? Is it like, I don't know, trying to give some of the, I don't know, more sadder setups or the situation their due, I don't know, atmosphere? Or is it just like, no, this is all hilarious, even though it's kind of sad?
Yeah, it's pretty much just all for goofs, like I said.
Does it work all the time?
I feel like it does, actually.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Because, I mean, if you can't... I found myself laughing more than anything else while watching it, so it achieved its intended effect, I believe.
Was that the funniest show you watched this season, or...
Funniest one? I don't know, but it certainly gave me the chuckles I was looking for all throughout, so.
All right.
But yeah, it's, not quite the same as other slice of life shows, I feel like, just because, of who the characters are. And I feel like that kind of helps set it apart even just a little bit. And how sometimes overly goofy it tries to be helps it out a little bit. And the characters, I feel like, were all likable as well for varying reasons.
Cool.
So if you're looking for something that's
even Raphael.
Yeah, even her, through her very pranksterness that's like constantly going on. It's fun for what it is. I think the characters are likable for what they are.
Are there any antagonists, like, besides, Raphael in a way, or is it like, okay, these are just this band of kind of, I don't know, hoodlums that just try to get through life?
Well, I mean, like I said, Satsunikia is constantly trying to spread her brand of quote unquote evil, which never works. So there you go. There is that. Is it like
backfiring because she's incompetent, or is it backfiring because, I don't know, the other characters are just smarter?
It's a little bit of both.
Right. So,
hey, I mail ordered this gun. When I shoot you with it, you will start laughing uncontrollably. oh, that's not going to work. Here, let me see that gun. And then Gabriel just shoots Satanikia with the gun. So she is undone very easily.
Yeah, so that's good. I don't know, what other comedy series like would you compare it to for people who are, interested in that kind of genre and are, have watched a few here and there and, are maybe searching for something comparable to what they have watched before?
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably kind of difficult to not compare it against it's like one of its immediate contemporaries like Kobayashi's Maid Dragon, because it was, an off-kilter slice of life in the same way that this is supposed to be, except, I kind of feel like Kobayashi's Maid Dragon is probably a bit better fleshed out.
Yeah, I really like, how Kobayashi's Maid Dragon, delved into just the importance of relationships and everything and how different they can be and, but how all the while important they are and how they can change people and, how people deal with that and, how it can turn things for the better and everything. And I don't know if Gabriel DropOut does something equally substantial with, its setup. It doesn't really sound like it.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't. Like I said, it's there for a laugh. You want to laugh? Here you go.
And that's fine. I mean,
it's like the snack food of comedy anime. I feel like is worth saying.
Yeah, sure. But if it's a good snack, if it's a tasty snack, that's fine.
Yeah.
The comedy just needs to work, and judging from what you told me, it's doing a pretty good job at being funny, like being what it's trying to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be more, But yeah, okay. So if one enjoyed the comedy antics of Maid Dragon, you would say that Dropout is kind of comparable.
In some ways, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I guess if you're just looking for something that's not too complicated with some simple laughs, Gabriel Dropout, it's got your back.
Alright, so yeah, this is a kind of a premiere, as this is our first Season 2 review of a show that we have already reviewed the first season of in an earlier episode. Episode 9 to be exact, we called Toy Soldiers. That feels like ages ago. So yeah, if you're interested in the basic setup of the series and who all the characters are, and some details on that, check out that episode first, because we won't talk about that here at length. Also, while we'll try not to spoil anything substantial from Season 2, we will talk about specific moments from Season 1, or at least one specific moment. So be aware of that if you want to avoid spoilers in general when it comes to that show. The show being Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. And the last time we saw our characters, the main group of characters, Tekadan, had accomplished their mission to bring their, contractor, Kudelia Aina Bernstein, to Earth so that she could deliver a rising speech in favor of Mars independence. And a lot of developments result from that and the battle from the final episode of Season 1. The corruption in the military organization that pretty much has been in control for the whole time, Yellowhorn, was exposed. There was a shift in political power. Makanai, the mentor of Kudelia, becomes the prime minister of Abrau, which is like one of Earth's biggest territories, containing Russia, Canada, and Alaska. Tekadan also becomes a much more prestigious organization. They've basically been like this mercenary organizations before, and now they are able to join Tevas, which is like this giant kind of mafia-esque conglomerate run by McMurdo Barriston, that NASA and the Turbines belong to, who have become equally like, they're kind of senpai equivalent for Orga and the group of Tekadan. They helped him to get Kudelia to Earth and everything, and help to fight the final battle and stuff. So yeah, and Tekadan also has now the mining rights for half metal on Mars, which with the help of Kudelia and her Atmos company, they ship to Abrau and their colonies. So they make a lot of money. They grow. Cordelia, by the way, for some weird reason, is like the only person in the cast that looks really different in the second season. Just in terms of character design and everything, she went from like this little princess-ish girl to full-grown businesswoman. Like from one season to another, like in the course of, I don't know, like a few months or something. Not only in terms of character design, but also in terms of character herself, like behavior and everything. And
well, when certain things happen in your life, sometimes you make drastic changes.
Yeah, but she also like looks completely different. Like in certain shots, she looks like a completely different person than before. It's weird, kinda, because she's the only character who is. Everyone else looks pretty much exactly the same. But yeah, Tekadan also became a military advisor for those Arbro territories, and they built an Earth branch, so they're flourishing and getting closer to Orga's goal to become a legitimate business that doesn't have to rely on sending kids into the battlefield. And there are a bunch of new characters to keep track of, new members of Tekadan, new members of Gjallarhorn. None of them felt really like a substantial addition, though, except for maybe one or two exceptions. I don't know if you feel the same. Like, did we have any really worthwhile additions in terms of characters in the second season?
I mean, a lot of them did feel like they kind of blended into the background.
Yeah. I mean, we have like one or two important players on Gjallarhorn's side, but one of them is like a familiar kinda, and the rest is, basically these are the new bad guys. And of course, things are bound to go sideways, with Tekadan flourishing and everything. Shit is eventually gonna hit the fan. There are several people in Gjallarhorn who, of course, are not happy how the final battle on Earth went at the end of Season 1. And some people in Tewas are also not happy with the rapid rise of Tekadan through their ranks, because they consider them, lowlife wannabes and who are, kids and only worth to be human debris. McGillis Farid is still around and has his own plans involving Tekadan, and there is like this new masked man whose identity couldn't be more obvious. Like, I mean, I know this is a constant theme in the Gundam, series, that has to be like this masked man, and sometimes you're wondering who's behind the mask, and sometimes it's really obvious. This one is the latter case. Pretty obvious who he is and why he's doing what he's doing. But yeah, a lot of different parties, a lot of potential for confrontations, and there are many instances of battle, loss, and tragedy during the course of the second season. So yeah, having watched all of it, I would compare this Gundam show to kind of a classic gangster or mafia movie or something, just in terms of structure. It's like a story about this small, underestimated party of comrades who, due to circumstances and their skills and will and strong leaders, rise to power, which is the story of the first season. And then in the second season, we kind of get to see their downfall, or their fall from glory, so to speak. It's a good concept, and I haven't seen that in any of the Gundam series I've watched so far, which, granted are not that many, but still. Can you think of anything comparable in the Gundam universe that tells kind of the same story? I feel like, at least in that regard, the other series were a bit different. Or Iron Blooded Orphans felt like a bit more fresh in terms of this in the story department.
Yeah, I mean, I love Gundam. There's no denying, though, that a lot of Gundam has become very formulaic. Mm-hmm. So this definitely, I can't really think of, that you're asking me, another Gundam series that follows the same sort of structure like that. Because, all through while watching this and the first series, I felt, like it was something fresh and different. And that was, it was good. That's something that Gundam needed, to break out of its norm. I mean, probably the most vastly different thing I think of Gundam, and it's arguably not Gundam at all, is Build Fighters.
Yeah, sure. But that's a completely different concept, because it's kind of like, reusing that franchise to make kind of a completely different show. But, I mean, there's still a lot of the same themes in this series that are in the other Gundam series as well. With war being bad. I mean, that's a very common theme. And the Earth versus the colony, although it's now versus the colonies, although now it's Earth versus Mars and everything. There are some of the same themes in there, but just in terms of how the story goes, this is kind of a thing that I would have expected to see more like in a gangster drama, like in 91 Days or something. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but since this is a season 2 review, why not mix up the structure a bit? I think the ending to the show was rather satisfying. Would you agree?
Definitely.
In terms of where some of the characters ended up and having enough closure and epilogue. I think for some of the characters, or maybe even a lot of them, you would have liked to maybe for them to end up at a different place. But at least it felt like, okay, this is a solid wrap on the story. It's not like there are a lot of open threads, hanging around or stuff like that. It felt like an ending. And, it felt like, okay, this is where we wanted to go, at least from a certain point onwards. And, okay, this is how we wrap this up. And, yeah, we kind of thought at least this part through. The problem with this second season are kind of sprinkled in between the beginning and the ending. So after an interesting start, there are a lot of story beats that take way too long to develop and move forward, and some of them are way too predictable to build enough anticipation to make the wait worth it. There are some character deaths that feel like they were thrown in for shock value and that don't get the emotional payoff that they deserve. There is a really strong mini arc right in the middle of the season. I'm pretty sure you know which I'm talking about, where it's like this grand battle that is like caused by an outside source, or it's basically something from the past that gets revived or something, and yeah, that interferes with what is happening at the with the characters at that certain point in the show. And that was just a cool little mini arc that had high stakes and all the parties pretty much engaging, trying to eliminate this one danger, this one enemy. And that was just in terms of fights, in terms of animation, in terms of cool character moments. A lot of cool stuff happened in that mini arc. In general, I think the fights in the second season just look a tad better than in the first. And they already look good in the first. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think just in terms of on the animation level and everything, I think the second season was in certain parts a step up even more to the first season.
Yeah, it felt like it had a little bit more polish on it. You're right.
Like I said, the mini arc was pretty good, but again, the fallout from that arc takes way too long to have, the impact on the story that you can already kind of see coming from miles away. Like there's something that the characters or that Tekkadan has to do to take this this rising force out. That comes back later in the story, but it takes way too long to get there for that thing to again appear and for you to see, okay, this is where this leads. This is what this has been building up to, and this is how the story continues. But and you could already guess where this is going. It's kind of hard to talk about this in a vague way without spoiling too much, but yeah, like I said, a lot of the story beats in this show, like during the course of the second season, were kind of too predictable and took way too long to develop, to build any anticipation. The show meanders a lot, again, and it feels like they are really stretching to get to those 50 episodes. Like we said, it pulls together at the end, but to get there, you have to deal with a lot of bad pacing and slowly moving, unfocused, and kind of shoddily handled story moments. I don't know if that bothered you as much as it did me, but I felt that in a lot of episodes in the show. Like, they felt really like they were just wasting time.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but I still feel like I got, the level of enjoyment out of it that I wanted to. I guess I'm just a simpler person.
I wouldn't say that.
But, coming off of, I'm constantly going to go back to stuff like Age and G-Reco, because, they are the stuff that came immediately before this.
Oh yeah, this is tons better than those.
Yeah.
No question there. But that's why I had such a problem with the second season, because the first season was so good and had so many interesting setups that my expectations were set much higher for this than, for the shows that came immediately before it, because I didn't even manage to watch all of those through to the end. And after the first season of Iron-Blooded Orphans, I don't know if you remember, but we were both pretty hype about the implications of certain, story beats in the show at that point.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like pretty hyped for a second season. Like, I know a lot of Gundam seasons tend to, or Gundam shows tend to fuck themselves up in their second season. But, I was still like, okay, this could go interesting places. And that's, aside from the slow pacing, this is one of the other thing that disappointed me the most about the second season. One of the most interesting things in the first season for me, and I think for you as well, was the relationship between Orga and Mikazuki. Mm-hmm. If you remember our review, for the people who listened to that, we were really interested in how their dynamic would change after Orga's moment of crisis, after the death of Biscuit, who was kind of the heart of Tekkadan up to that point, and somewhat the moral compass for Orga, when he questioned himself and everything. And it was heavily implied, because Orga didn't, witness, the final moment before, or, didn't have a heart-to-heart with Biscuit before he died, but Mikazuki did, and it was heavily implied that Mikazuki did lie about Biscuit's final words and, his wishes that he wanted to, convey to Orga when he next spoke to him, which never happened because he died. So it was implied that Mikazuki lied about those, final words from Biscuit to force Orga back into his role of competent-driven leader, because he needed Orga to be that kind of leader to even have a reason to keep on living. Because Mikazuki basically only knows how to be a tool for Orga, and doesn't really know how to live a life without Orga as his guiding light. So I was wondering what effect that would have on their relationship, and if Mikazuki would, further slip into insanity, become even less human and more of a machine, like Ein in the first season, who basically at the end is just a robot, kinda.
Well, and has pretty much in a literal sense.
Yeah, he's basically fused with the Gundam, and only his, a copy of his brain remains in program code or something. So, and that is also heavily implied at the end of season 1, because, he can't move one of his arms anymore without sitting in the Gundam. And his body further deteriorates in the second season to the point where he basically can only lie around if not connected to Barbatos. And can't move any of his limbs anymore. So, yeah, those were some interesting themes. Those were some interesting setup. And what do they do with all of those interesting setups in the second season? Abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Like, Orga's and Mikazuki's dynamic doesn't change. The thing with Biscuit isn't really brought up again. So there's no interesting drama resulting from that. Like, there's no confrontation between Orga and Mikazuki because of the stuff, and Orga doubting his goal. He stays like this kind of driven, not flawless, definitely not flawless, but, kind of clear-minded leader that means best for, all the people around him. And Mikazuki stays like the strong, focused, like heavy-hitting fighter that can basically solve any situation, almost any, with just beating every enemy to a pulp. And the human or machine thing is a constant presence, with Mikazuki and his deteriorating body and everything, and, Farid's plan also plays a bit into that. But it's not really discussed or has any emotional impact on the characters or story whatsoever. So, yeah, Mikazuki doesn't really care that he is a cripple as long as he is, able to support Orga's dreams. So he stays like this simple, single-minded force in the background. and doesn't really have to rethink his way of living, and neither does Orga, and I was kind of hoping for that. I was just hoping for those two characters, like, clashing with each other. Mikazuki trying to force Orga to, like, stay on his course, and Orga overthinking at a certain point, you know, what have I been doing up to this point? Haven't I already reached the goal that I wanted? And why don't I stop here? And this should be the end. And I was just waiting for stuff like this to happen, and it really doesn't. It feels like maybe Mario Okada had an interesting idea where she wanted to take the character stories in the show, but then for one reason or another decided against it after season 1, or was forced to abandon them for a more streamlined rise and fall story of Tekadan, or she knew how she wanted to end the series but didn't really know the details on how to get there, which would explain the general meandering, unfocused storytelling in season 2. If I remember correctly, you were pretty interested in learning more about the Elia Viana system, which we also didn't get.
Yeah, that didn't happen at all.
Yeah. So basically all that promising stuff that made the wheels turn in our heads at the end of season 1 because it had the most potential for interesting story developments didn't go anywhere in season 2 or got, you know, thrown out entirely. And that was kind of a big letdown for me. Like, I really hoped they would do something interesting with that, because they were teasing it heavily, and apparently either I was reading too much into that, or we were, or they just, thought, no, we don't want to do anything with that. We're going with, that story beat instead. Since you apparently enjoyed the second season more than I did, what was the stuff that worked for you the most? Like, were the key moments in the second season where you were like, without trying to to go into too much detail, aside from the ending, which we both thought was pretty good. What else worked the most for you? Was it a certain character constellation? Was it a certain story development that kept you hooked?
I mean, it's hard to say because spoilers are everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
So, but yeah, I just the fact that, and you could apply this to the first season as well, that, it was different for a Gundam series, and it broke a lot of its own norms. I don't know, without, diving deep into spoiler territory, it's hard to really answer that question at this juncture. Maybe if it were like a year or two down the line.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we'll talk about it if we review the next Gundam series. I don't know, but yeah, it's I know I know it's hard to talk about at least the specific character moments without going into spoilers. And I mean, there are some strong scenes, some strong emotional scenes in certain parts of the show, but I don't know. Like I said, the most interesting stuff and the stuff I was hoping for didn't happen, and some of the stuff that should have been more emotional, like I said, like certain character deaths, felt a bit too rushed, a bit too, thrown in there, and not that well thought out or written. And felt more like, okay, this is war, shit happens, goodbye character. And I was like, okay, some of them were really good though. Don't get me wrong. There were some emotionally key moments in that show that I enjoyed as well. It's like there was so much, unnecessary fluff in between that we didn't need, and we probably wouldn't have had if the show was, the second season was only 13 episodes maybe. Some other stray observations, like I promised. I'm still not a fan of, the whole bigamy, harem, child marriage thing in this show that already happened in the first season. Like, I don't know why that is in here, if it's supposed to be like a neutral discourse on relationships and how they, can differ and how all of them have equal value in a way. I mean, like I said, in a way, Kobayashi's Dragon Maid did that, but love is love and whatnot, but some of the stuff just felt really icky in Gundam. I don't know. Just the way it was executed just didn't sit right with me, and it felt a bit, bit clumsy. I don't know. I don't know if you felt the same or if it didn't bother you, but some of the stuff was just like, okay, what are they trying to do with Fareed and his little child bride?
Oh God.
Does this have to be a thing, and does it have to be in the show like again and again and again?
Yeah, that was really like every time it came up.
The stuff with Mikazuki, Cordelia, and Atra, keeps on happening. And I think they kind of get that to a satisfying ending, at least in a way, how at least two of the characters end up. And it's like, okay, I guess this works. And so that didn't bother me as much in the ending. But it was like, okay, I don't know. I don't know why this was in the show. It didn't have to be.
I mean, at least it works better than, McGillis.
Yeah, that's it. Talking about McGillis, the first season made him out to be like this, I don't know, oh, he's the guy behind the scenes, and he is the master plan, and he's the puppet master, and he's playing everyone, and he maybe has good intentions, but, watch out for that guy. And turns out his master plan kind of sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it involved some complex planning, I guess, but it boiled down to something I don't know. It was kind of a big play, and it, I don't know, it was a big wager on his part, and I would have tried to come up with a much safer plan. And it really didn't work out for him, I think, that well. I mean, not to go into spoilers again, but once it is revealed what he's trying to do, I was scratching my head and was like, really, this is your plan? And you think that's gonna work out? And turns out it really doesn't. And I'm not surprised it didn't. So, and his motivation, while understandable, was very basic, and for such a seemingly complex character was kind of a letdown to what it boiled down to, and how it was wrapped up. I mean, it's supposed to be like this. His tale is supposed to be maybe one of the most tragic, how his character was formed, and what is, like what I said before, what his motivation is, and how it, how it came to be and everything. But at the end, it just felt kind of like, okay, there were other ways for you to get your resolution to this, and you are maybe a bit too narrow-minded, and that maybe that was the moral of the story. Just like a lot of other characters in the show, maybe he was just too narrow-minded and too focused on this one single view, and that was his problem. And eventually, his downfall and everything, and that, goes with the downfall, the rise and downfall of Takadan. Very much is connected to that, but still, it felt kind of weird at parts, and was a bit of a letdown in the emotional department. I expected more there as well. I don't know how you felt about McGillis in the end.
Yeah, I think, they were just, like you're saying, just trying to play off of his hubris a lot, and
yeah,
it just didn't 100% work.
Yeah, he just felt such a cool, conniving character in the first season. It's who seemed to, have everything together and know where he was going. And by the end of second season, you're wondering about that. Okay, maybe not. And yeah, like I said, the child bride thing didn't help. Not really.
That's tough to get over. Just even thinking about that after the fact.
Yeah.
It's man, dude, come on, dude.
Yeah. Even if it was okay, I'm only doing this to gain power, he is not acting like he's doing that for power, so...
No.
So, yeah, it's kind of weird.
He's acting like he's doing it because he's a creeper.
Another thing, although more on the funnier side, at the beginning of Season 2, I thought one of the new members of Takadan, called Hush, might turn out to be the next Shin Asuka of this.
That's what I was thinking, and then they're like, nope.
No, why was I wrong? He actually turned out to be a cool character. But we got a Shin Asuka in Eok. He gets that questionable honor, but at least he's supposed to be a bad guy, unlike Shin was. Shin was supposed to be a good guy, and that, wow, man, he fucked that up.
Well, everyone loved Shin because everybody, if you're not Japanese, you hated Kira.
Yeah, sure. I didn't hate Kira.
I can't stand Kira, but everyone in Japan's like,
Shin
oh,
was
he's the
worse.
greatest Gundam protagonist ever. Shut up. You're lying
Shin
to
was
yourself.
worse. Shin was worse. At least Kira's competent in a way. Shin wasn't. He was just a good fighter, but also an idiot. And Eok is nothing, so he's neither a good fighter, nor competent, nor anything. He is doing a great job at being the worst, dumbest, most arrogant idiot in the show, who is like doing everything wrong, getting his comrades killed, attacking the wrong people, having no idea of what is going on. Hubris again, and man, at least his comeuppance is pretty satisfying. Like, yeah, that was a good moment. Which I can't say for Jesslace, who is like the other major asshole character in the second season. The finale of his arc and his comeuppance felt really rushed and didn't have a good payoff, in my opinion. That, I don't know, that felt like it came out of nowhere until after there was like this big shocking moment at a certain point in the show, and the character death and everything, and then you're like, and he's related to that, and like, okay, now this is gonna be the next big arc, and then it's like, no, it's like one episode, it's like a small battle, and then no, goodbye character, and like, okay, what? What was that about?
That was strange.
That was again one of those moments where it's like, okay, I think they had a plan for this character, and then they threw that out and just gave us this weird rush wrap up. And that happened a lot in the show and in the second season. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. This feels like improvised. I don't know. Was it? I can't tell. I would like to interview the writer/writers. I don't know how many writers we had on the show.
There were like 6 or 7 writers on this show.
Yeah, maybe that was the problem. I don't know if it would have been better if Marie Okada wrote everything herself, but maybe too many cooks spoiled the meal or something in this case.
Well, I mean, a lot of these writers, they worked on like a ton of different projects. Unlike, the more unified front that Gabriel DropOut was on, it's like you had people who were working on all sorts of things. So I'm sure they brought all their own ideas. Like, hey, we can make this happen, and we got what we got.
Yeah. I have been super negative for the past, I don't know, half an hour on this show. But considering how violently certain Gundam series shit the bed in their second seasons, I would still say this is definitely one of the better ones out there. Even with me being really disappointed that none of the interesting setups were followed up on in the second season, I would say this was still a good Gundam show, and it was still enjoyable. I think you have to get through some not so good stuff in its second season, and the second season is definitely not as good as the first one. Maybe better animation, but everything else I think is not as good as the first one. Yeah, I think it's still worth to see what becomes of those characters, to watch the series through for that. If you've watched the first season and was like, hey, this was great, I want to see how those characters, where those characters end up, and how it all wraps up. I think it's worth to watch the second season for that, but don't be surprised if you won't be that happy with everything that happens in the show. And I'm not talking about a feel-good happy ending. Nobody expect that from a Gundam show anyway. I'm just talking about, certain shoddy character developments and everything. So, don't be surprised if some characters don't get their, due time that they deserve and everything. But, yeah, while we're at it, how would we rate this compared to other Gundam shows we have seen? I mean, you've probably seen more than me, and I have a guess that Build Fighters is still ranking above this for you because you really love that show. Am I wrong?
I do love Build Fighters, an almost unreasonable amount of love I have for that show, but it's also not a main line Gundam series, so I don't feel like it belongs, in that same in a comparison of all of the other shows. I haven't seen a lot of the older stuff. I think, like many people, the first one I saw beginning to end was Gundam Wing. Like I remember watching Gundam Wing and thinking, oh, being my how old would I have been? Probably when it hit American TV, how old would I have been? Maybe about 13, 14, and think this is fucking radical. And then maybe like the year, I forget when it was after that, but after Gundam Wing ran its course, Toonami then picked up and started showing the original, like the 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam, and I feel like my opinion on that series hasn't really changed.
That didn't go well, did it? If I remember correctly,
the 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam is kind of a fucking mess, no matter how you slice it.
I only saw the compilations movies on that, and I don't know how much of how much character development they had to subtract because of the runtime of the movies and it being a long series, but. Man, does it feel like we're jumping from one moment to another without much connective tissue there. Me and a friend watched through the 3 compilation movies because we wanted to have some universal century knowledge for Gundam Unicorn. Because that was a show we wanted to watch because of the great animation and everything. Was like, okay, we have to... since this is like playing in the Gundam universe that is kind of connected between series, being the Universal Century stuff, we have to at least watch some of the stuff. So we watched that, and I believe Char's Counterattack. Yes, we didn't watch anything of Zeta, but those was the stuff we watched. And boy, that we had a lot of laughs, like that. Old late 70s, early 80s Gundam was. Was weird.
Yeah.
Was kind of fun in certain parts, but not intentionally. And I guess that goes for all anime from that time, maybe, but also Tomino and
Tomino. Bless your heart for creating Gundam, Yoshiyuki Tomino, but your vision was a strange one.
Yeah.
Going back a second to, you mentioned Unicorn, and you didn't really talk at length about it after Re 0096 aired. I tried watching that show, and I watched it beginning to end, and I walked away from it kind of like, what?
Well, the ending was weird, but I still got the gist of it, and I was just like, I felt like it had interesting story beats, and the characters were rather cool and everything. So, out of the Universal Century stuff, I enjoyed that one the most. Like I said, I haven't seen Zeta or Double Zeta or anything. But that was like had the most interesting characters to me, and of course looked the best and everything, and had the most interesting story, even though it got really weird in its final fight and final confrontation and everything.
Yeah.
But so did Char's Counterattack, so...
Yeah, I mean, I won't deny Unicorn its level of quality and polish, because it is a beautiful series / whatever format you watch it in, be it the OVAs or the recut TV version. Yeah, you watch the OVAs, I watch the TV version. And I don't know enough about the OVAs. I don't think we know enough about our opposing format in which we watched it to really draw a lot of comparisons and, figure that out. But
did they add anything for the TV show? Do you know that?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay. Because it felt like the pacing of the OVA was pretty much like, I wouldn't say perfect, but well done. And couldn't use any more filler, and there are enough conversations and everything, and enough action spread evenly throughout the OVA. So I'm wondering if they put more stuff into the TV show, if this show doesn't suffer or wouldn't suffer from that. So I wonder if they did that.
I mean, like I said, Gundam Wing was the first one I watched. Then there was kind of a gap until Seed hit over here. Although, to be fair, there was only 2 shows in between. I think I started to watch Gundam X, but didn't get too far in it. And I just never touched on Turn A Gundam, but I hear it goes to some weird places where they were trying to be like, yes, all of the Gundam timelines are unified.
Yeah, this is the end of all Gundam.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I never watched Zeta, Double Zeta, Victory. I'm pretty sure I watched pretty much. That's not true. I didn't watch all of Seed because I hated it.
I watched all of Seed. I watched all of Seed Destiny.
I'm sorry.
Why did I waste my life?
But then when 00 came about, that was when I really started trying to make a concerted effort to watch Gundam series beginning to end. So, you know,
and Gundam 00 definitely got me back hooked back after Seed Destiny left me so fucking cold.
I kind of feel like in retrospect that 00 was Wing version 2, but I still liked it for what it was.
That also was not as good in its second season and made some very weird decisions that didn't pay off, but the movie Awakening of the Trailblazer was very enjoyable that came after it, so that was a nice, like,
I don't know something? I still haven't watched that.
You should. Well, now you're probably wondering, wait, who were these characters again?
Yeah, I would probably have to go back and either read a summary of 00 or just rewatch it.
It's really weird from going from the ending of season 2 to Awakening the Trailblazer, because that movie has like a completely different tone. Just feel more of a straightforward, I don't know, I wouldn't say goofy, but more lighthearted, maybe action movie. And that doesn't really fit with the tone of the series up to that point, but I still really enjoyed it. So, I would recommend watching that.
I mean, you know what I forgot that I actually watched? G Gundam. That show, I love G Gundam, but it's hokey as fuck.
That's fine, too.
It wants to be a super robot show, and it kind of gets there. But what kills it for me is... Bless you, Mark Gatha. You are a great voice actor, but a lot of the voice acting, the dub is terrible.
Okay.
Like I was trying to rewatch it a couple of years back, and I was like, "Wow, this dub was really fucking bad." But that's pretty much it for the TV series. But I mean, as far as like, I'm not going to go much deeper on this, but something like with the OVAs, the stuff that I really liked were 0083 and 8th Team. I think those are probably my 2 favorite out of all of that stuff.
I think that's I would maybe not say that's a consensus, but a lot of people hold those like shows in high regard. So I don't know. I haven't watched those. I think I've said everything that I've watched. Yeah, see the original movies, then Char's Counterattack. And, Unicorn, I've watched Seed Destiny, 00, all the way through a bit of H until, it's 3rd generation, and then I stopped. And
yeah, I think that's where a lot of people stopped. I mean, I thought it was all right for what it was. I don't disagree that there were some strange plot beats in 3rd generation, but, What about Gundam: The Origin? Did you watch any of that yet?
I watched like the 1st and 2nd episode. I haven't finished it yet, and same goes for Thunderbolt. That got more episodes as well.
Yeah.
The rest of that either.
I started watching Thunderbolt. I haven't watched any of the new stuff that started again recently.
That felt like the epitome of Gundam in certain regards. Just like, okay, we got just these 2 factions just mindlessly fucking each other up. And is really dark. Like, okay, yeah, this feels like Super Gundam. War is fucked.
I feel like Thunderbolt was the first time I actively disliked the Federation and started rooting for Zeon. Because what was the name of the dude on the Fetty side?
I forgot.
EO.
Jazzman.
Fucking EO. I hate EO. He's a douchebag. I can't fucking stand him. So then when they introduced what's his name on the Xeon side, it hasn't been that long since I watched, but him, I felt like, I was able to get on his and the other Xeon soldiers level a bit more. Daryl, now his name popped into my head. Like I like Daryl and his crew a lot more than EO.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a surprise. Like Gundam has, given both sides in the history of the series, they have made a point of like giving both sides their sympathetic and unsympathetic characters. Like it's not always like necessarily, oh, okay, these are all the bad guys. These start out maybe as the bad guys, but later maybe they can become the good guys for one reason or another, even if it's deserved or not. So yeah, Thunderbolt feels like that again, where it's like, okay, maybe you would be rooting for that side rather than the other one, though. It's like both sides have their share of assholes. So there you go. I'm not necessarily talking about the main characters, but in the background, yeah, enough shitty people.
Yeah, I mean,
Thunderbolt.
It goes without saying that going from series to series, different factions will have, different characters that you'll probably sympathize with more than others. So.
And definitely want to go back and watch the rest of Origin, because the first 2 episodes were pretty great, and the CG in that show was really good.
Shockingly good.
Yeah. God damn it, why can't... It was super fluid, and the camera work was amazing, so why...
Yeah.
I know this is a different budget probably, but god damn it, I wish all anime CG looked like this.
It's like there is a show that we're wrapping up this season that had some CG scenes that looked pretty good. So why can't that happen more often, man? But yeah, I mean, there's obviously Gundam won't stop until the end of time.
Yeah, but
we've got 2 more OVAs coming this year: Twilight Axis and a new Build Fighters one. So
okay, what is Twilight Axis about?
Twilight Axis is apparently based on a light novel that's set between Unicorn and F91. So
okay,
we'll see.
Yeah. Maybe I'll check it out. But yeah, we have gone off like into off the deep end into a Super Gundam flashback. The original question was how does Iron Blooded Orphans stack up to those other series? Like, where would you rank it? Like, from all the shows you've watched, like. What show would you rank above it?
If I'm gonna be a bit more general, just so I don't have to pick names out of my head to do a full ranking, I would say I think it could fit somewhere in a top 5.
Okay, all right, yeah, definitely for me as well. Like I said, I was really disappointed of certain aspects of the second season, but I still consider this to be a good show and a good Gundam show. And I'd probably rank it second at this point. It's probably right below Unicorn, which probably would be my favorite Gundam thing up to this point. Yeah, I'd probably rank it in second place, then maybe below that Gundam 00, and then everything else. And down at the bottom, like at place 100,286, there's Gundam Seed Destiny cozily sitting there. Just Shin Asuka fucking sucking his thumb and whining about his sister. He's just like Batman with his parents, that fucker. Anyway. God damn it, I hated Shin with a passion. Just like you hate Io. But anyway. God damn it, we've talked a lot about Gundam in this.
And that's fine.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And what that is telling you, dear listeners, if you, for some reason, are not enticed by what we told you about Iron Blooded Orphans, there's a lot of other Gundam stuff to watch out there. So even if that show and, what you heard about it is not to your liking, there's a lot of other Gundam-related stuff to seek out. And maybe there's some, shows which tone are more interesting to you. Just stay away from certain well-known failures like Gundam Seed Destiny or Reconquista in G. I don't know. Like I said, you need to watch the very old stuff. You need a certain kind of humor to tolerate some of its shortcomings, I guess. Iron-Blooded Orphans, I enjoyed for at least half of its runtime and the ending, and I think John enjoyed most of it, which is cool. And I'm happy to hear that. Actually, I'm really glad that you didn't sour as much on the show during its second core as I did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of your assertions, but I did enjoy it. So I feel like at least even a little bit more than you found.
Good, and maybe some of our listeners who decide to watch Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans and get through the second season will feel the same way, and I really hope that will be the case. Not everyone has to be a grumpy old man like me. So yeah, if you're interested in giant robot stuff and anti-war stuff that still has some cool battles in it, and an interesting gangster-esque rise and fall story. Maybe check out Iron-Blooded Orphans, even though, maybe you won't be that content with its second season. But still, I would say it's worth a try, and there's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of worthwhile stuff to watch. So yeah, check it out. Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, for me, was a flawed experience, but nevertheless, I don't regret having undergone this little journey. And that is a wrap on the 31st episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrit.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and animebrainfreeze.com. Leave us comments and questions anywhere you like, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Macht's gut.
See you later. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
CG meets 2D gone wrong in the most gloriously baffling and hilarious way possible.
And then rousing adventures with the most undependable crew you've ever seen.